Hello everyone, welcome to my channel. I'm currently in the park and I was about to film a yoga video, but it just came to me that I've been putting this video off for a while, obviously because it's a hard topic for me to discuss. This is one of the hardest things I've ever been through, having an abortion, but a lot of what I teach is really about sharing your story, even when it's hard, even when your voice is shaking. Share your story, and even when you know people are going to judge you. So I realized, okay, I've been putting off long enough, because I did tell, oh, here's Priya. I did tell some of my followers that I'd be making this video a few months ago, so I have put it off, and now I'm here to talk about it. Because I do feel it's an important thing to discuss that doesn't get discussed very often, and I try to say that I don't have regrets in my life because I want to learn from everything, but this particular topic is one that I struggle with. I'll tell you a little bit about the story and then how I have managed to heal from it, but as you can probably see, it does bother me a little bit, and it still keeps me up sometimes at night because it's something I really am working on forgiving myself for. It's been just over 2 years. So I'll tell you the story, and before I begin, please keep judgments aside. So a little over 2 years ago, I was living in Australia, and I had been single for almost 4 years because I had been badly traumatized and in a series of very toxic relationships when I was younger. Priya's on my back. So I guess this led me to be a little bit scared, but also to spend the time to work on myself, which I knew was very important, and I had to realize why I kept choosing the type of partners that I was. So I was living in Australia and not dating anyone, working on myself, really coming into my power. I was feeling really good about myself. I began teaching yoga. I was making a lot of friends, just traveling around the world by myself, and everything was just great. Everything really was good in my life. I didn't have any bad things happen during those 4 years. It was really just smooth sailing. And then I ended up moving in with a man who somehow became my boyfriend within the first month of me moving in with him. We had some similarities, but I wouldn't say they were good similarities. They were more like our shadows liked each other. So it was a test. He was a test. We dated for about 6 months, and at the end, he became very emotionally aggressive, and it was getting abusive. And then we ended up taking a break over the holidays. We were supposed to spend Christmas and stuff together, and we were living together, and he actually last minute kicked me out of our home. So I was staying in my car, which is not actually a big deal because I do live in my car a lot while I travel. It was a little hard spending Christmas and things alone in my car while my boyfriend, I don't know what he was doing. So we decided to break up because I wasn't down with being treated like that. And then I found out I was pregnant shortly after New Year's. And during this time, I had texted him and told him I was pregnant, and his response was, "I'm partying and I'll call you tomorrow." Over the next week, I tried to reach him and he wouldn't talk to me. I did love him and I thought we were really close. So this confused me a lot and put me in a great deal of pain. At this point, I was just staying at a hostel and I was extremely depressed. I had been dealing with things over our relationship over time that really brought my self-esteem down. I had caught him talking to other girls, things like this, lying to me, and it just didn't make me feel very good about myself. So I was already at a pretty low point. At the time, my mom was in the hospital, and my mom's my best friend, so it was really affecting me. And these are all excuses or reasons why I was at a low point in my life. By the time, about 2 or 3 weeks later, he finally would talk to me about it. He told me he didn't want me to have the kid, that I have to get an abortion, and I have always been against abortions my whole life. I have another visitor. So at this time, I was 25 or 26, and I had never been pregnant in my life. I always said if I got pregnant, I would definitely have the baby because I'm a natural person. I've never been on birth control. I actually had a feeling that I wasn't able to get pregnant because of that. I was in such an emotional turmoil at the time that I didn't know how to process it, and I was in a country where I didn't know anyone. I didn't know what to do. I didn't tell my parents for a few weeks, and the only person I was really trying to talk to was my partner at the time, who for some reason wasn't talking to me. And basically I spent 12 hours a day crying in a hostel bed, probably making all of the people staying there very uncomfortable. But I had nowhere else to stay. And once I started going out, I was just crawling once a day to the local theater and eating a bunch of ice cream and treats and crying in the theater. So that was my life for a few weeks in Sydney, Australia. I didn't know what to do, but I kept having dreams that I should have the baby. So I finally told my mom, and she said, come back to Canada and we'll help you through it. And I finally felt really good. I'm like, this for the first time feels like something is right. This feels right in my heart. And then I called my then ex-boyfriend, and he got very upset and threatened me and said if I had the baby, he would make mine and the child's life a living hell. On and on with a lot of really not nice things. At this point, I had been broken down so deeply that I didn't know what to do. And honestly, I can't say it was a very classy time in my life. I was basically begging him to be there for me, and he was telling me to go die. So as you can imagine, I wasn't in a good place, and then one day he decided to be nice and say, oh, I love you, and if you have this abortion, we can be together. And I guess I was dealing with my own past, which has been a lot of seeking validation and acceptance from men who neglect me, which goes down to my childhood. I'm not going to get into that. So with my own inner demons, I really just wanted this guy to care about me. So I ended up making the appointment. Everything happened so quickly. Something pretty crazy happened when I went into the doctors. I don't think at that point I ever really took it that seriously, maybe because I didn't want to accept it, or maybe because I had convinced myself that I could never get pregnant. But I was sitting in the doctor's room when they went and checked me and told me I was 8 weeks pregnant. I just started crying and realized that there's actually a soul inside of me, whether or not you believe it's in that early or not. I felt like there was, so that really hurt. And I stepped outside and I texted my partner and I told him it doesn't feel right to me. Please don't make me do this. I don't want to do it. He said, Crystal, I love you and everything will be okay. You just have to do this for us and we'll get through it together. I'll see you right after. I'm going to come pick you up. Somehow I let his opinion override how I felt, and that is my biggest mistake, I can say. And the weird thing that happened was when I went and sat down after I saw the doctor, my brother randomly messaged me on Facebook and said, hey, my girlfriend, who is the same age as me, is 8 weeks pregnant. So that synchronicity right there probably should have shown me that I was making the wrong decision. Anyways, I was weak. I went through with it. When I woke up on the operating bed, the feeling that I felt is undescribable. It just felt like my baby had been taken from me, and nothing that I went through that month really hit me until that moment I realized what I just did. And it honestly felt like I was just in a whirlwind of events, and that happened. I had realized 10 minutes too late that it was the wrong decision. And I was very messed up from the anesthesia. It's the only time I've taken it in my life. And my boyfriend at the time came and picked me up. He spent the night with me at the hotel, and the next morning he left me at the hotel and didn't talk to me for a week, which was probably the hardest week of my life. And when he did talk to me, he said he wanted nothing to do with me. He decided to also steal my car because I had put it in his name when we were together. Don't do that. So I had no car that I was supposed to sell for a few grand, and that really affected me at the time too. So then it actually left me broke in Nepal at one point because I was relying on that money. And the point of me opening up to you guys about this is not to resent people that are like this, but something I struggled with in my life, and this is a little off topic, but something I really struggled with when I was a teenager, and I mentioned I had an abusive family member, was always thinking, why me, why me? I must have done something. There must be something I've done for this person to treat me this way. And over time, I realized you didn't do anything. It has nothing to do with you, ever. If someone is attacking you and doing very hurtful and horrible things to you, you just have to let them go and not try to say, what have I done to deserve this? Or wait around for an apology, because I did that many times in my life, and I never received an apology for any of this. I asked for my car back and he told me to go take my own life. So that shows what kind of person this was. I just had to let that go and accept an apology I would never get. So when people are on this kind of level, all we can do is just leave them alone and pray for them. So the biggest part for me at this time was to really take a step back from my life and figure out, even though everything's been going really well in my life and, you know, I've been teaching yoga and teaching peace and love, but I let this person who's on a very different vibration into my life and into my bed. That's the worst part. For a year, I dealt with the worst self-hatred I ever have in my life. 1, for letting this person into my life, and 2, I have to take ownership for my actions. I can't say he made me get the abortion. I did it myself. It was for being so weak that I let someone else's opinion ultimately change my whole life and my potential baby's life. And that was something that was very, very, very hard for me to deal with and forgive myself for. There was nights I laid in bed literally scratching at my skin, wanting to just crawl out of my skin because I hated myself so much. It was a process, as you can imagine. Also, I grew up Christian and Catholic, and there's a lot of reconditioning I've done in my life to lose the thought that I'm going to be punished for my sins or go to hell, and this is not what I follow anymore. I'm not saying it's a bad thing, but I do disagree with it at this point in my life. I don't think we're going to be punished for our sins, but I'd rather like to believe that they have happened for a reason, and as long as we're learning from them and progressing ahead, I don't think it's something to regret. So I did a lot of self-love practices, and I did some exercises of letting go of the little soul that was in me. This is one of the reasons I got this tattoo, which says, "We part only to meet again." So I hope that one day my little soul will come back to me. Writing to the would-have been child, asking for forgiveness and meditating on that. I did that quite a bit, and it did help to write to them and explain why I did what I did. Also, meditating on forgiving myself and forgiving my partner, even though it's really hard, as you can imagine, to try to put myself in his shoes and see why he might have pushed me to do that, which is really, really hard. It's a process, but one day you do get there and it does help. And I don't know if he had any emotions towards it because he never showed any, but I like to meditate on the fact that it may have been hard for him too, and that helps me process it. I think deep down people that are still hiding their emotions do have some. They're just hidden, even if they can't feel it. And another thing with people like that is no matter how well they mask it, no one who can do those kinds of things to someone is happy inside. So there's no need to try to seek revenge on someone. They're not happy as a person. So don't waste your time going to their level. Don't let anyone else ever decide something like that for you. Ever. And this is coming from one woman to another. Never let anyone influence such an important decision in your life. At the end of the day, it is totally 100% your decision. It's not your parents, it's not your boyfriend, it's not your ex-partners, it's your decision. Sit with yourself, meditate. I didn't give myself that time, and I wish I sat with myself and I came into my truth and realized that. And I'll put the link below. There's a girl that is a friend of mine from Australia who shortly after, I think a few months later, she became pregnant by her partner who lives in a different country with 2 twins, and he abandoned her as soon as she told him that she was pregnant. So she made a beautiful social media of being abandoned and pregnant and just showing everyone how excited she was to have these twins on her own, and she's just like strong, powerful, no doubts in herself whatsoever. And I honestly felt that if at the time I had met someone who was a role model in that way, just to even someone who said, "Hey Crystal, you're strong enough to do this yourself, go for it." And obviously things play out the way that they're supposed to, and when I saw her social media, I was a bit of a wreck for a few days. Really not happy with myself that I came to such a low point. But also, like I said, I had been single for a few years and everything in my life was just running smoothly, and it's the dark times that we grow from and we make changes in our life and we come out more powerful. And I can say that I've come out stronger than I ever was before. I would never ever let someone like that into my life again. Now I'm with a loving partner for the first time in my life. I have always been with the bad guys or the people that are always misunderstood, and that's part of the healer inside of me. A lot of women do it. I finally got to the point where I said, F this, I am not putting up with any shit anymore, and I'm going to be with someone that loves me and respects me. I did really search for a meaning. I don't want to say that this happened just for me to become stronger, but there's a lot of reasons why things like this happen. And about a year after it happened, I was back home in Canada with a good friend of mine. And we had a glass of wine, so I was crying about it. And after I told her the whole story with the guy and everything, she just told me, have you ever thought that maybe this was the universe's way of showing you what kind of person this was? Because if I hadn't got pregnant, I might have ended up back with this person who, as you can imagine, isn't a safe place for me. And I never knew that about him. He masked it very well. I thought for a while that he was the first nice guy I'd ever dated, and he ended up being the most troubled. It's always good to try to find the lessons in any circumstance. So that is my story with abortion. I'm also going to be making some more videos on how I healed and the self-love techniques that I practiced at this time. I'm going to have a 5-week self-love challenge in July, which will be very fun, and I hope, male or female, everyone will join me on that. Other than that, I hope you guys enjoyed this story. I know it's not the happiest one, but I do hope that my message will reach some women out there to really come into their power and their truth in this kind of situation. And if anyone happens to be in this situation and needs to talk, please just message me, comment below, or message me on Instagram, and I'm here for you. Namaste.